I'm here with a special edition on brand with a very, very important guest today, very timely guest today. You may have heard of Michael Cohen. He has been a tad in the news lately. He is, of course, President Trump's former fixer. He is coming off I would guess would be an exhilarating week for him. Obviously, Donald Trump fell guilty on all 34 counts. Michael Cohen is a good friend of mine, full disclosure, and I'm happy to have him here today. Welcome, sir.
Donny D, how are you?
How are you? That's the question. How are you feeling? Take me inside. First, let's go back. I actually called you about a few minutes after the verdict, and I remember what you told me, but I'd love to tell our audience, what did it feel like as soon as you first heard that first guilty?
So I was sitting with my wife and my daughter. My son was at work, and we were watching, actually, MSNBC. And all of a sudden, they announce that in 30 minutes, the jury is going to be rendering its ultimate decision that they've come to a decision. And that 30 minutes was probably the longest 30 minutes because for 6 years, as you know, Donny, because you've been on this journey with me longer than 6 years. In fact, it's been 8 years since the raid on my home, the hotel, and my law office. So we sat and we waited, and then all of a sudden the verdict came down. And once that first count was read as guilty, I knew that all 34 counts were going to be guilty as well. They generally
How did you know that? How did you know that?
They generally start with the non-guilty.
Right.
So now it's not 100% that way, but they generally do start with a not guilty verdict, especially considering all of the allegations of the checks with the invoices, as well as the backup for the Trump organization were all identical. So I realized right then and there that all 34 were going to be guilty. And I couldn't believe it. And I just sort of let out this, it's just like, I can't believe after 6 years of telling the same story again and again and again, and watching as many in the media questioned the veracity of the statements over and over and over again, that finally 12 jurors made the determination that to be accurate based upon not just the corroborating testimony of others, but also based upon the documentary evidence, that they validated what I have been saying for so long.
You know, you couldn't help, whether like it or not, you were on trial also. I mean, this was a verdict for you. It was, and I remember a few days before in the Post headline, liar, cheat, I mean, this horrible headline, and we spoke, and I said, Michael, you'll have your day. And everything not only changed for Trump, everything changed for you with this verdict. It really did. I, as a brander, and I said this to you, I said, Michael, this is a chance for you to reintroduce yourself to the American public. And so tell me kind of how the thought process for you in how this redefines you.
It's a great question. I spoke to John Dean about a week or so before I actually took the stand. And he said to me, regardless of the outcome, there will be a place in history for you. And it's sort of like a loaded question, right? Or a loaded statement. Is the place in history going to be one where Donald does not see accountability, that my story doesn't get, my narrative doesn't get validated? Or is it going to go the other way, meaning that my narrative is validated, that these independent jurors have now finally taken my narrative and they have validated it to the public. Now, I don't ever anticipate the New York Post or the Washington Post or Fox News or even CNN with folks like Ellie Honig, right? Or even on MSNBC, Ari Melber. I don't ever anticipate any of these folks coming out and saying, you know what? I made a mistake. The statements that I made about Michael Cohen, the questions about his veracity, I apologize, right? They're all so knee deep into their horse shit where they don't really care. They made their statements. They did it for their own specific reasons.
What statement did Ari Melber make? Because I know you and Ari go way back.
Michael Cohen's going to be a horrible witness, that,
right.
That I have, that I'm a perjurer, I'm a liar, I'm a convicted felon. That happens to be true, right? I lied to Congress, but again, they never finished the sentence. Donny, I have asked you this question as the branding guru that you are. How do I get these assholes to continue the line and not just to stop right there? Well, Michael Cohen lied to Congress. Yes, I did. But I did it in coordination and for the benefit of Donald J. Trump. There was an entire group of people. How about Alan Garten was involved? How about Ivanka and Jared Kushner? How about Jay Sekulow, Trump's attorney at the time? How about people like Abby Lowell and Ty Cobb? They were all involved in the creation of the statement. And again, for your audience, what was the lie? Now, I don't dispute the fact that it is a lie, but I dispute the relevance. I dispute the fact that I should have been charged for it. For example, the number of times that I claimed to have spoken to Donald about the failed Trump Tower Moscow real estate project, they wanted a de minimis number. So I changed it from 10 to 3. That's the lie. So when people say, but you're a liar. Donny, can I ask you this question? And I want every one of your listeners to answer the question in their own heads. Donny, have you ever lied before? No. It's important.
Have I told white lies?
Yes,
I've told white lies.
Because yes. I am now the attorney that's questioning you. Have you ever lied? Have you ever lied before?
I've told white lies, yes.
Have you not told a non-white lie?
I don't know. But this is not,
Donny,
Michael.
Let me answer this question. Have you ever lied to family?
I've told white lies, I'm sure. Okay. But here's the question I want. Here's what I want to say to you.
Have you ever lied? Have you ever lied in business?
I was a real straight shooter in business, but Michael, you see, I think you and I talked about this. I think you're going about this wrong. I think the answer is I lied. I paid my price.
By the way, it's exactly
now everybody knows
Donny,
I'm telling the truth.
It's exactly what I said. But what I'm trying to point out is everyone, especially folks in the media.
I know, but that doesn't.
They become so self-righteous.
Yeah, but you can't. You that's not the debate or the comeback for you. And you and I have talked about this. Is not everybody lies. Is that I got sucked into the Trump world. I did stupid things on behalf of them. I paid my price, and thank goodness a jury of my peers found the truth and found that I was telling the truth. And from here on in, I look forward to living in the truth. That's the spin. I don't know. That's the spin. That's the truth. Well, and that's where you've got to live. You don't win, but you don't win, Michael, by pointing. Everybody does fucked up shit. We all know that everybody does fucked up shit. But you got caught. You paid your price, and thank goodness people understand that you were telling the truth in what was one of the most important trials in American history.
So the point that I'm trying to make is everybody has become so self-righteous, but they don't finish the sentence, which is the point I was trying to make. It was the lie. But you are right, and I don't dispute what you're saying. I've owned my mistakes. I have acknowledged my mistakes. But the jury of 12 independent New Yorkers Republicans, Democrats, Independents. They were black, they were white, they were male, they were female, they were Hispanic, they were of all probably, religions as well. These 12 independent people listened to my testimony, which was corroborated by the testimony of 19 other witnesses, as well as hundreds and hundreds of documents, of documentary evidence that validated and it proved exactly the point that the prosecutors were trying to make. And that was the reason why the jury issued the verdict of guilt 34 times.
I've walked in the streets with you before the trial. I haven't been outside with you since the trial, and I see the way people stop you. And how is it, and in New York City, it's overwhelmingly go get him, killer, that kind of stuff. How, since you've been out on the streets since the trial, how have people been reacting to you?
So yesterday, my wife and I
we're taping this, by the way, on the Monday after the trial. This is Monday morning. The trial, the guilty verdict was Thursday. So now we're talking Monday morning.
So yesterday, which was Sunday, I took my wife. We went to see Hell's Kitchen, the Broadway show about Alicia Keys. By the way, phenomenal. Maybe one of the top three I've ever seen. And as I was standing on this long line, I can't even begin to tell you the number of people who came over. And it's nerve-wracking because you're not sure whether
what they're going to say,
punch you in the face, right? Or to ask you for a selfie. Well, I was very fortunate because it was all about selfies yesterday, and
it's New York City. If you were in Tupelo, Mississippi, it might have been a little different.
I probably would have been executed on the spot. But they overwhelmingly yesterday and the day before, and actually since I sit outside at my regular coffee joint, I can't tell you the number of people that have come over to say thank you, that they truly believe that the verdict of these 12 jurors has saved democracy. And being such an integral part of it, they thank me as well.
I've been fascinated by people's reactions since the trial, and what you see is people who are Trumpers. They speak the party line about, this is a witch hunt and whatnot, and you see the people that are not Trumpers that are obviously he got what he had coming to him, and this is going to affect things. They just came out with a poll over the weekend that independents, 60 some odd percent of independents said they believe that this would disqualify him for being president. They would not, and that's a big deal. So the issue is not what Trumpers think. The issue is not what hard blue liners think. The issue is those about out of 330 million people, about what 600,000 or 700,000 voters think. And I do think this sways on the margins. I do think it makes a difference. I think that particularly they came out with a poll of what they call double haters, the people who are not happy with either candidate.
65%.
It was 65% of those, that's what I'm referring to, that were like, no, this makes a big difference for me. And that's where I think it is going to make a difference.
Yeah, I am with you 100% on that. You and I have actually had this conversation over your egg white omelet and my pancakes, where we talked about this exact issue, which is what will change the minds of certain individuals. Now, from Republican standpoint, they claim, based on this poll, that it's 11% of the GOP, registered GOP members will not vote for him as a direct result of these convictions.
I think that's high.
Even if it's 7%.
Exactly. Or 4%.
That's the difference. That's the difference. It's a large enough number that he cannot recover from. Now take the independents. I've always broken it down this way. 1/3 of the country, it's not exactly accurate, right, by any stretch, but I'm just for number purposes. 1/3 of the country are Republican, 1/3 of the country Democrat, 1/3 now independent. We already are seeing that of that 1/3, 11%, 10%, 5% of that Republican Party will not vote for him. So that means he only has, at best, 28% of the Republican Party. You cannot win with 28% of the Republican Party. You need the independents. right? Because there's no Democrat that's going to vote for Trump. And
You mean 28% of the country, not 28% of the
28% of the Republican Party is his base now.
The base. Okay,
right. And no Democrat's going to vote for him. But now we get to the independents. He has to make up that 5%, meaning he has to take 10% of that, which he's not going to, because 65% of independents have already said that they're not going to vote for him. Now, couple that with his racist comments towards black and brown people, take the same number of women who will not vote for him based upon this idiot patting himself on his diaper to turn around and to say that he is, thanks to him, Roe versus Wade, the Roe decision has been overturned. And that thanks to him, women now have less rights today than they had 50 years ago. This is not a winning strategy, no more than the losing strategy that Donald Trump employed for this trial with Todd Blanche and Susan Neckles and whoever, what's his name, Beauvais, right? It was a losing strategy, thinking that the way that you exonerate yourself is by denigrating and smashing Michael Cohen.
Speaking of that, you were on the stand for 25 hours. And, it was amazing the way they made that Todd Blanche gotcha moment, which was not a gotcha moment, but you held to get everybody ahead of time that you were referring to earlier. Was like, is he going to crack? Is he going to lose his cool? What was and this is actually a great teaching moment for anybody who's in any stressful situation, and whether you're going in for nothing gets as stressful as this, but whether you're going in for an interview or you're going to be grilled about anything, what were the tools, the kind of the behavioral tools you used? Did you have a mantra to just say, because anybody that's ever been in a deposition or anybody that's ever been going to trial, you always want to explain, but you're told less is more. Answer the question. But the tendency, particularly with someone like you, is, well, I don't want to just say no, I want to explain more. So what were the disciplinary kind of human behavioral tactics you used to keep yourself focused, to keep yourself kind of like calm, and keep yourself exactly where you needed to be?
So remember, prior to being disbarred, I was a lawyer, and I had conducted, many, many depositions and trials over the course of my career. That, I think, gave me an advantage. It's a disadvantage as well, because one of the things that you do as a lawyer is you try to anticipate what the attorney that's questioning you is going to be asking you, and that's a terrible thing. So it's really just keeping it in your head all the time, a rotating loop, saying, just answer the question. If you could do it with a yes, sir, a no, sir, may I explain if it's wrong, sir? Just keep your cool, keep your calm. It's much harder than, in reality, than as I'm explaining it to you and your listeners. But that's the whole thing. You just have to maintain your focus for the entire time period. It is mentally, physically, emotionally exhausting, because all people, regardless of whether you're, a lawyer or whatever profession, a podcaster, you want to explain yourself, especially when you're being attacked. One of the things that I always had in my arsenal is knowing that the prosecutors are really competent. Susan Hoffinger is the one who questioned me during the direct. And I knew from her direct the level of competence that she brought to the table. And I knew that if there was some issue that came up, that I'm going to call it a gotcha moment, though Blanche never scored it, despite all the media, again, jumping in there. Todd Blanche just crucified Cohen. With what? With that minute 39-second, email or text message with Keith Schiller, Trump's bodyguard? I didn't I knew that I had the ability on redirect to explain it. And knowing all the documents, I knew that there would be a way to undo any mistake that may have been made. But I feel very fortunate that in these 21 plus hours of sitting on that stand, there was no mistake. There was no gotcha moment.
Speaking of the 21 hours on the stand, talk to me about your eye contact with Trump, or the connection or non-connection, or what was going on in the room between the two of you guys.
Zero. He had his eyes closed the entire time. He was slumped back in his chair, arms, as you know, when he gets angry, he crosses the arms, eyes closed. Completely.
Why do you think his eyes were closed?
What's that?
What was he? What was the message of him closing his eyes?
Well, I think it's twofold. The first is that he couldn't look at me because he didn't want to acknowledge the reality of what was going on. And the second is more like when you're playing with a baby and you're playing peekaboo, right? You put your hands in front of your eyes and, you're pretending that, for the infant that you're not there. By him closing his eyes, he was almost pretending like he was not on trial. He was not there in the courthouse being charged with 34 criminal counts that basically can put him away in jail for up to a maximum of like 4 years.
What do you think Marchand's going to sentence him? You don't know. The conventional wisdom is he's not going to get jail time, and there'll be some form of probation, some form of community service. If you were a betting man, how would you? And now this is having said he's gone after Marchand since the trial. He's called him evil, and you're a judge, and he's you got an angry judge now, and as you know better than anybody, you're supposed to stand in front of the judge and say, "Yes, sir, I know my mistakes. We know Trump's not going to do that." So, what do you think the sentence is going to be?
I stood in front of Judge Pauly. It was one of the things they wanted to attack me on when I lied to Judge Pauly. And I stated, for example, like with the tax evasion, the first 5 counts, never have I once questioned the underlying facts, which is that there was an error in the amount of money that I had paid. What I questioned, and I question to this day, and I talked about that on the stand, which I thought was very effective, to the jury. I was never afforded the same opportunities as everybody else. So to any one of your listeners that has ever had a letter come to them from the IRS, and that letter says, hey, we think that there's an error in your 2012 tax return. We need you to reach out to the agent listed below with either your accountant, your lawyer, or by yourself to discuss the matter. I was never given that chance. Mine went from a Friday, an allegation, to a criminal conviction on Monday, 48 hours after. And the threat that was made to me by the Southern District was, if you don't plead guilty, we're filing an 80-page indictment that's going to include your wife because you've
talked about that. But go back, answer my question. What do you think?
Let me say this. The reason I bring that up is because I went ahead and I did show contrition. I did show remorse at mine. And I got 36 months in part for the same criminal violation that Donald Trump has these 34 guilty counts on. I got 36 months of incarceration and 36 months of supervised release. So my question to all of the pundits that say, well, you can't put a former president in prison. I think, and Michael Steele said it very well on Saturday when I was on the weekend show. If you don't do it, are you not really then acknowledging that there is a different set of laws and facts for people, Donny, like you and I and your listeners, as versus somebody like Donald Trump? And the answer is yes, and there's not supposed to be. Me personally, I stated I don't want to see him in a jail situation, only because I fear for his big mouth and the fact that he would he would release information to anybody that's willing to listen to him about information that is top secret, something that he did with Putin in Helsinki, something he did at Mar-a-Lago, where he just will give away secrets. And don't forget, not only for 4 years as president was he debriefed daily, but if he becomes, hard to believe, the Republican nominee, he's entitled to briefings as well. So he can easily put our national security in very serious harm's way, which you know as well as anybody, Donny, because you know Donald a long time. He's so angry that America is allowing him to be charged with these 34 criminal counts. He's willing to burn the country down.
Well, he's willing to burn the country down whether he was found guilty or innocent. So what do you think Merchan's going to sentence him?
You know, it could be a my belief is that he gets a suspended sentence till after the election. It will be home confinement pending the outcome of the election in November. Now, he'll be able to travel to different places, but he's going to have to check in with a probation officer. It's going to be a modified home confinement, but it's not going to give him all of the conveniences that, you know, non-confined people have the luxury of. I'll tell you another thing that goes to show you that Donald has become completely unhinged. His press conference at Trump Tower was one of the craziest that I think I have ever seen of Donald, ever. You know, for 10 minutes of it, he attacked me again and again and again. Sleazebag, you know, making up stories and bullshit about my medallions and banks and so on. None of that is true. There were no charges for any of that. I didn't cooperate in order to get a lesser sentence by rolling on him, right? This is not Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump. That's what he tried to make it. Rather, this was the people of the city of New York, the Manhattan District Attorney versus Donald J. Trump. I mean, did you hear the nonsense, the batshit crazy avalanche of, you know, broken brainword manure coming out of this guy's mouth? It was absolutely insane. And I bring up that point only because when I was watching it, I'm saying to myself, how could anybody that's watching this, coupled with the racist comments that he says, coupled with Roe v. Wade, how could you possibly still be backing somebody who is this unhinged? Because rest assured, if, God forbid, he gets back into office, I can't even begin to tell you the number of people that are on his, you know, his hit list.
Oh, I'm sure we know you're definitely at the top, and I'm definitely in there also.
On that
and that's
list.
Scary that we have to live in a country that we have to even think that way. The thing that I think is a benefit of the trial for the Democrats beyond, and I've said this on the air, you know, he's a guy that was always good at branding, you know, Lion Ted, Sleepy Joe. Well, now he's convicted felon Donald, you know, for here on in. Okay. So that's number one. That's a positive. Number two, he's not going to be able to stop talking about this. And that he should be talking about immigration. He should be talking about the protests, all the things that he's got, which would be legitimate weapons to use. But he won't be able to help himself. And every speech from here on in is going to be about grievance and anger and look what they did to me. And I don't think that wins an election.
No, I think it loses the election. But while we give Donald a lot of credit for creating monikers and branding people, I'm going to pat myself for the first time in a long time on my own shoulder and say that I believe that I created the greatest moniker of all time for him with Donald Von Schitzenpants. Hashtag Von Schitzenpants.
No, I think we should stick with convicted felon Donald Trump. That's a really powerful
with Von
one.
Schitzenpants. In fact, just to let you know, when I first came out with that on my podcast, on Political Beatdown with Ben
Michael, we can't. Nothing changes.
I do want to turn around and tell you. I do want to tell you that went and trended for over 30 days straight. It was so upsetting to him that they actually made a motion to the court in order to relieve him of the gag order so that he could respond to it. And when that was denied, he went ballistic. But I did agree with the prosecutors at their request to stop talking about him at all, not to use that moniker, not to go on social media until the verdict, which I did.
So let me ask you a question. I want you to keep this to 30 seconds, all right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to use this as a bite. If you could sit right in front of Trump now and just give a 30-second monologue, what would you say?
Well, at which point would I ask?
Right now, today, I'm Donald Trump, and you get to say 30 seconds. He doesn't get to answer. You just get to say your piece. What's that 30-second piece to him?
What the hell are you doing? You had the greatest opportunity in history to potentially be the greatest president in the last 100 years. You had every opportunity to do that because you were an outsider. And instead of what we talked about, which was to create an infrastructure fund as the first bill that you passed, you decide to do a Muslim ban. And then it only got worse from there. And the fact that now you think it's acceptable to go ahead and to take pride in a woman's loss of her rights, of her reproductive decision-making rights, and you take pride in this, I don't understand. What the hell happened to you? You had every opportunity to do great things for this country, but something went wrong. Whoever it was that you were listening to, that you continue to listen to, you need to step aside and you need to allow somebody else to come in to the office to run as the Republican, right? Not you. Somebody else needs to run so that this country can heal.
Okay, that was a great message for Trump as president and your thoughts, and I think that's incredibly well done. Now, give me the 30 seconds, just Michael to Donald, about your life and things you want to say to him on a personal level.
Fuck you. To infinity and beyond. The damage that you caused to me by throwing me under the bus, the damage you caused to my family, to their happiness, to my livelihood, to my law license, to my business. It is inexcusable what you did to me. And as far as I'm concerned, not that I would ever expect an apology, but that would be a really great place to start.
I love it. I love it. You mentioned earlier about John Dean telling you how you're going to be in the history books and seen in the history books. Write the paragraph if you think would be the kind of definitive description of where Michael Cohen fits into all this. There's obviously, this is going to be written about ad nauseum throughout history, but give me the succinct version, what you think, how history will record this.
I honestly, it's a question that I would really have to take a lot of time to think about, because mentally and emotionally and physically, I'm not in a place where I can think about how history will remember me. I'm more right now focusing on family and friends and trying to figure out the next chapter of my life. There's so much divisiveness in this country. I don't know how I will be remembered. I certainly know that I will be remembered as the key witness, according to media and others, in this epic trial. I know that it will record that I was on the stand for 21 hours. I know that it will record that in the 21 hours, despite Trump's people, and I'm talking about these members of Congress coming out each and every day and attacking my credibility because Trump was under a gag order, and that failed as well. I know all of this put together. There is a real narrative about saving democracy, but that only applies if he loses in November.
So what's next, man? Tell me about the next few months.
I don't know. There are always opportunities to explore. The last sort of couple of days since the announcement of the verdict, I thought it would be easier for me to sort of just strip off this hurt, the pain that I live with every single day, the difficulty in sleeping that I contend with every night. I thought it would be easier to shed that sort of that exoskeleton, but it hasn't been at all. And I don't know how long it's going to take. It's grueling. The whole experience, I'm still trying to get past the unconstitutional remand of me, something that Donald constantly, references, that the Biden administration has weaponized the Justice Department against him, which of course is nothing more than a deflection of what he did through Bill Barr and his Justice Department when they unconstitutionally remanded me. I'm trying to get past all of this, and I just wish I can shut that portion of my brain down, but I can't. When you're sleeping, you have no control over what you're dreaming. There's triggers like light, because when you're in an institution, especially when you're in the solitary confinement as I was for 51 days, through the glass, or if you're in like when I was in the cubicle, they flash a very like 1,000,000-watt flashlight into your face to see you jump. And that way they know that you're still alive. And they do that like every 30 or 45 minutes, all throughout the night. The sound of the rattling keys is sort of another trigger. And, certain types of, believe it or not, smells or food or even sounds they're trigger events. And I don't know what it's going to take to sort of kill all those trigger events in my mind so that I can have some peace. That's really what I'm trying to work on. Though, of course, I have to support my family, myself, my wife, and right. So I have to figure out what's next for me in that. But it's very hard when you're dealing with your own, emotional devil, and you're trying to deal with that as well.
Michael, you've had a lot of rough weeks. It was a good week last week, sir. Continued success. Thank you for taking the time. I know how busy you are, my friend.
Appreciate it. Love you, Donny. You're the best.
Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.